Welcome back! Today we are still with Derek. Obviously, it's the Derek video. And, well, as things go, we have to be responsible. And this is the entire moment. Responsible! The floor of Derek's condo complex was a perfect setting for a late morning outing. It was early enough in the day that it hadn't reached its hottest. The air still held the crispness of the morning. Despite its pleasantness, only you and Derek were there. Of course, the location of the ocean and maybe everyone else who felt like waterside fun was at the beach. You usually were. The warm roughness of the towels felt odd on your bare feet as you walked further into the pool-shaped area. Into the pool area. There was no sand to squish between your toes or sharp shells to avoid. You surveyed the area while Derek finished putting his stuff away on the chair. The chlorine was sharp in your senses, and the entire space was so orderly. Lounge chairs sat in neat rows, and umbrellas out uniformly. The depth of the pool was marked out in clear text along the sides. Every single element was intentionally and expertly crafted to be convenient for its human visitors. It was extremely different from the wild mistress of the sea. You liked the sandy beach with the rolling waves way more. This pool was too tame. It was like some kind of big bathtub, and the chemical smell was off-putting. Beaches had so much more than just water. Where were the hidden treasures, the wide open space, and the vast horizon? Pools made sense when the ocean was millions of miles away, but you didn't really have a use for it when the beach basically being in your backyard. This could have been Derek's plan. This had been Derek's plan. He let you know about it ahead of time, so you could have been dressed for the occasion. You wore swim trunks, and a shawl to cover up. The swimming gear was familiar, even if the pool wasn't. You were prepared. Derek bounded up to you in his own swim trunks, flagrantly ignoring the no running signs in his enthusiasm.
Okay.
I just realized something. My headphones aren't connected. Which is kind of haha funny. Forgive me a sec. Watch, I'm gonna do a cannonball. As soon as he knew he had your attention, he took off to the deep end of the pool. He built up speed, then leapt into the water. His curled-up body created a huge splash on impact. You applauded. You had to appreciate his talent and showmanship. Had he practiced on how to achieve the maximum splash? Such a show deserved a clap. He stayed under a while longer. He touched the pool's bottom before he kicked himself back upward. When Derek's head popped out of the water, he swam to the edge of the pool and propped himself up with a grin. He watched you expertly. You jumped in the pool. Like Derek, you gave yourself a bit of a running start. You reached the end and took a deep breath and leapt as far as you could. Frigid water burst around you, feet first, but soon covering you entirely. You sunk into the lower depths and began to kick. You reached the surface and sucked in fresh air. You noticed two things. One, the water wasn't actually freezing when you got used to it. And two, that Derek was clapping for you.
Nice!
Nice! You got some serious airtime. I'd give that 10 out of 10. As you enjoyed the moment, your thoughts fell back to how you'd gone here. Last night, Derek had called with a different sort of request. He remembered that his voice had been a mix of nerves and hope. He had a favor to ask, very unexpected for him. Derek's mom needed him to watch his little brothers in the afternoon. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary, but that was part of his problem. Lately, he feared that his sports skills wasn't as sharp as he wanted them to be. He hadn't been able to practice soccer or football without the distraction of keeping an eye on his brothers. His idea to fix that had been to ask you for your help to watching the kids. If you agreed to go to the park with him and his brothers, then you could manage his brothers while he had the chance to focus on practice. That's how he explained it. You said yes, and your moms had been more than happy to let you spend the day playing support for Derek. They said it would be a good opportunity to take on more responsibility. To sweeten the deal, Derek suggested you come by early, so that you both could hit the pool. Nicholas would be sleeping in. Jorge, I think it is. I record these so different times, so they're not always back to back because I have to do stuff in between. Like, I'm currently doing the washing. Jorge, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Jorge. Jorge could spend some one-on-one time with Mrs. Suarez. So far, the plan had worked out. Matt dropped you off about 15 minutes ago, and both Derek's brothers were fully occupied. Mrs. Suarez and Jorge were back in the condo putting together an 800-piece puzzle on the kitchen counter, while Nicholas snoozed on the couch. You had time to kick back before the moment came to be in charge of small children. A sloshing sound pulled you back to the present. Derek had climbed out of the pool. I'm gonna jump in again. Wanna join? Yeah, let's go. You copied Derek's exit from the pool. It took arm strength and caution not to scrape yourself in the texture of the concrete. Once on solid ground, you reversed away from the edge to give yourself enough space for a good jump. Poised to go, you and Derek made eye contact. He leaned forward, bouncing on the balls of his feet.
No worries.
I've already done one. It's your turn. You cartwheeled into the pool. You positioned yourself carefully before springing into action. You ran around, then launched off one foot while starting to raise your arms. The momentum carried you into your body as you placed one hand sideways and the other struck the very edge of the pool. For a split second, you were balanced on your hands as your feet tumbled through the air. However, instead of finding solid ground, you landed in the water with a great big splash. Wow! You stretched out and reached up towards the surface, parting your arms to paddle over to dry ground. Derek was laughing boisterously. It was his turn next. By the curve in his grin and the lift of his chin, he looked to be in the mood to impress. His eyebrows drew together in deep furrow as he considered his launch. Derek took a few bounding steps to the edge, jumped up, and tucked his body in. Unlike his previous cannonball, the energy went into a spin, and he flipped, making a full rotation before he crashed through the surface. The droplets from such a splash dazzled you as they exploded from his impact. He swam under the water and only came back to the surface after he reached the wall of the pool. He snaked his hands up to the top of the towels and pushed himself up so that his hips were even with the edge. He twisted and practically rolled out of the pool from there. You're up. Okay. You backflipped into the pool. You planted your feet solidly at the edge of the pool, while facing the water. You bent your legs and prepared. You sprung your arms back until like a pendulum. Then you swung them forward. The moment your hand pressed past your knees, you jumped backwards. You tucked your body in tight as you turned all the way around before you hit the water.
Whoa!
Whoa, that was awesome! You kept switching back and forth, trading off between silly jumps and then more impressive tricks. From watching Derek's well-practiced dives to performing your own jumps, there was never a boring second. After several leaps, Derek called break time, and he took a breather out to the back stairs to the pool. You waited for your strained heart rate to even out from all the exertion. After a pause of silence, Derek spoke up. He pulled his fist to his cheek and thought, squishing his face slightly.
So...
Hey, I probably should have asked before, but have you ever babysat someone before? Yeah, sometimes I babysit for my mom's friends. That's cool. Having you on my team is going to be amazing. When it's a 2-on-1 game, it's rough. You'll even the odds. Right. You really felt for him, given your own babysitting hurdles you'd had this summer. You were eager to take on this job. You wanted to give Derek some assistance, and watching his brothers sounded fun. After that interlude, you both continued to enjoy yourselves and your freedom until a little beeping alarm went off. That's time. He made his way to a lounge chair with his stuff and dug out a small portable clock. It buzzed until he found the stop button. Derek checked the time and narrowed his eyes at the glowing red numbers. He shot you a thumbs up.
Let's go.
Let's go up. You helped him gather the towels and grab the rest of the stuff, then tried to drip as little as possible whilst rushing through the halls of the complex. When you reached his apartment, he dumped everything into his arms on the ground and scrambled to find his key. Just give me a second. I don't want to knock or anything in case Nicholas is still sleeping. Well, still asleep. He finally spied his soccer ball keychain and snatched up his keys from where they were tangled in his towel. He inserted the key into the lock, and both of you shuffled inside the Suarez home. The three heads swiveled to face you two, gazes being drawn to the bundles of neon towels coming in. Mrs. Suarez and Jorge were sitting on bar stools, while Nicholas perched on the counter itself with an excited grin. They were working on a puzzle. On your left, Derek leaned closer and spoke under his breath.
I figured.
He's awake. Derek's back! Quick as a blink, Nicholas scrambled onto his hands and feet and zipped across the black marble of the counter. Tiny cardboard puzzle pieces scattered. Nicholas, the puzzle! Despite Hardy's frustration, the little whirlwind didn't seem to hear. He was on a mission to reach his big brother, not even stopping when he hit the end of the counter. Nicholas stumbled off the edge, and Derek instinctively moved forward with a gasp, dropping all his pool stuff except the towel wrapped around him. Mrs. Suarez caught Nicholas with her forearm, hooking under his chest, snatching him from midair. Oof. She hugged her son, holding him securely against her body. A chorus of relief sighs filled the room. Nicholas still paid no mind to his trail of disasters and began to squirm. He just wanted down already. Derek took another few steps forward, making his way over to the scene. Mrs. Suarez carefully held Nicholas out, her hands under his armpits, and safely set him down on his feet. Nicholas immediately wrapped his arms around Derek's legs. Derek chuckled while tugging up his towel so Nicholas wouldn't pull it off. Hold on, Nico, you're gonna get wet. Nicholas giggled mischievously and snuggled closer. Derek snuck a quick peek over his shoulder and back over at you and shrugged. Just as warned, Nicholas had a damp splotch on his shirt. You asked Holiday if his puzzle was alright. The counter was littered with pieces. You could see there was large sections of the puzzle put together and several scattered parts that had been broken back up into many individual pieces. Some had even been knocked onto the floor. He picked a few up to hand to Holiday. How's the puzzle? Holiday stared at the pieces pinched between your fingers distantly before accepting them. He sighed over the mess. Yeah, it's alright. Holiday nodded at you, appreciating that you had asked. He still seemed unhappy, but no major harm done. Well. Mr. Suarez's tone was warm, with a certain amount of humour to it. She rubbed her hands together and stood up. Derek and Callie are in charge now. Make sure you listen to them. Holiday sourly picked the puzzle pieces, but gave a grumble noise to signify he had heard. I'm going to head off to my appointment. You went to gather some things, officially putting you and Derek in charge, but there wasn't 1 second to settle into your new position. We're going swimming? Nicholas looked up instead with huge shiny eyes. Derek reflectively stiffened. How could he escape the puppy dog look? Derek's eyebrows creased, a small sign of nerves compared to the smooth, placating sound of his voice. No, even better. He leaned down and lowered his voice, like he was about to share a secret.
I've got a plan.
We're going to the park. Nicholas instantly frowned. He wasn't convinced by Derek's act. He grabbed at Derek's towel. You were swimming. Yeah, but I'm not anymore. I'm going to the park, and you can come with me. No! Little Suarez whined and stomped his foot. His hands balled up around the neon fabric harshly enough he almost took the towel from Derek. I want to go to the pool. I want to see Callie's swimsuit. What? Derek's jaw dropped. Neither of you were prepared for that one. Did you hear Nicholas right? You look down at yourself currently wrapped in a bright fuzzy towel. You switched your gaze to Derek's younger brother, your brain trying to make sense of what was happening. Why'd you want that? Why does Nicholas want anything? Holiday rolled his eyes and continued mumbling into the counter. It was obvious to him, and he couldn't believe the rest of you were taking so long to catch up. Because Derek does. You couldn't help feeling amused. Derek narrowed his eyes and whispered harshly.
Seriously?
Nicholas? Holiday? You're gonna put me into an alley grave. He took a deep breath as he stared at the ceiling. It took him a moment to face you. His voice was firm for someone at his level of embarrassment. He must have said something about hoping you'd remember to bring your swimsuit. I was excited for us to be able to swim, so I did want you to have one. Nicholas does not actually want to see you in a swimsuit. He doesn't even know why he would want that. He's just saying stuff. You snorted and had to cover your mouth to stop yourself from laughing. Derek shook his head, still blushing, but he relaxed at your obvious amusement. Little kids were so funny. You snuck another look at Nicholas. He had crossed his arms high on his chest and squished his neck down far enough to rest his chin on his wrist. I want to go swimming! His power intensified when he said it again. He was a very angry little baby. Derek tilted back on his heels once again, driven to look at the ceiling by the strain of this kid. You glanced up there yourself without thinking about it. It was a calm light color with a few light fixtures. When you squinted, you noticed something small and green. It appeared to be one of those sticky hands for kids. Was this another present from the youngest Suarez? You tuned back into Derek. You appeared to have made a decision. Alright, I promise you can go swimming, too, but only after the park. We'll go to the pool as soon as we come back. With the promise officially made, Nicholas lit up. He snatched one of Derek's hands. Let's go! We gotta get to the bank so I can swim! While Nicholas celebrated, Derek closed his eyes, and some of the worry creases on his face moved out. Derek, there's lunch packed in the fridge. Dad will be back before dinner.
I gotcha.
Gotcha. Thanks, Mom.
Have a good one.
Have a good one. Mrs. Waters waved and collected the last of her things, her purse off the side table, and ruffled Waters' hair on her way out. You and Derek were alone with the kids. We should really stop leaving puddles everywhere. He gestured to the drops of water pooling at his feet. Good idea! You and Derek took turns changing. You went first, while you could faintly hear Derek impressing his younger brothers, listening to you too. You must have convinced them to behave for now. Neither Holiday or Nicholas acted up when Derek took his turn drying off and clothing himself. Didn't get our lunch from the fridge. I'm gonna pack my gear. No problem. You walked casually to the kitchen. Holiday hadn't moved from his bar stool, even once since you gone back. Meanwhile, Nicholas followed Derek like a possessed shadow that was even more energetic than the original. He zipped around, occasionally trying to place things in Derek's backpack for him. So far, Derek said no to the rubber duck, but agreed to bring a pair of extra socks that Nicholas had determined were absolutely necessary. Okay, got everything. Derek returned with the backpack in one hand, and Nicholas's small hand in the other. We're going, Holiday. Ready, Callie? I'm pretty sure. Sure. He pushed away from the counter and finally hopped off his chair with enthusiasm of a plank of wood. We're going! Derek hid a smile at Nico's echo and ushered everyone outside. He locked the condo behind him and you began the trip to the nearby park. The park for the Soiree boys was the big park for your family. The condo complex was only a short distance to the public outdoor recreational area your mom sometimes drove you to. It was still a beautiful day outside and had only gone a few degrees warmer from your morning swim. The field was bustling with other groups of people enjoying themselves. Derek led the way to an open, wide part of the grass that no one else was using. He stopped in the middle of the field and turned 180 degrees to face the little boys behind him. He shrugged off his backpack off his shoulders and dropped it to the ground. He knelt down to root inside of it. Holiday and Nicholas waited in place for their brother. Derek gathered a couple of things in his arms before pushing off the ground with his knee to get up again. He had a football in his left hand and a soccer ball in his right. Alright, Nicholas, Holiday. I've got to practice, but you can too. Which one do you want?
Okay.
Football. Real ball. You raised an eyebrow at the shouts. Derek leaned over to you and whispered with a laugh. He means the soccer ball, because it's actually a ball shape. Is that a problem? They want both? Derek simply grinned. I thought so. He tossed Harry the football first. Harry caught it from out of the air with one hand and began to bounce it up and down with his fingers, feeling the weight of it. Derek popped the soccer ball gently over to Nicholas, who watched his brother intently. Nicholas had been able to catch it with both hands. He wrapped his arms around the ball and hugged it close to his chest. With his brother's taken care of, Derek crouched again to reveal a third ball. He brought a second football. Derek had been prepared. Then he sprung back to his feet. Another problem diverted. Holiday, Nicholas, you can use this half of the field and I'll use that half. Callie can be your ref, so don't get too far from them, alright? Okay. Holiday tossed his football in the air, preoccupied. It spun and arced downwards. Alright, I'm gonna practice. Nicholas embraced his soccer ball tighter, pressing his cheek into it. You wondered how he would practice with it, when the equipment was just as big as his head. The child looked completely content with the world, but Derek's eyes narrowed once again. You share Nicholas's info in your ear. Watch him. It's not over. He copies what I say, but it's not what he means. You sneak a peek at Nicholas. He appears so innocent, clutching his ball, and staring at a patch of clover in the grass. But you'd interacted with him enough to not question his potential for trouble. You would make sure to keep an eye on the kid. I will.
Thank you.
Thanks, Callie. You're a lifesaver. Derek held his football in both hands and cheered. Bye, bros. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, bro. Derek put on a smile and he picked up his bag, tucked his football under his arm, and jogged to his side of the field. He didn't have time to lose. He stood with the younger Suarez brothers, effectively turned loose. Hardy stared at you with uncertainty, while Nicholas's mischievous smirk could only make you guess what he was thinking. You weren't going to make Mr. and Mrs. Suarez regret letting you come, and you especially weren't going to disappoint Derek. You were going to watch these boys. Time to be in charge. I'm going to play over there. He pointed vaguely to the opposite side of the field from Derek, and trotted off to entertain himself. You let him go without argument. Hardy wasn't the problem child. When you saw him settle in, throwing the ball, his football, and chasing it, you smiled. But you'd only need to manage Nicholas. You winged your grin towards him, but instead of being in the clover patch, he was missing. You snapped your head back and forth until you spotted him fumbling dash across the grass, trying to keep his soccer ball from slipping out of his arms. When Derek said watch him, he had really, really meant it. Well, you just had to push up your sleeves. He wasn't going to be the first troublemaker you ever dealt with, and he wasn't going to be the last. You ran over without a word. You were thankful for your longer legs, since the kid was quick. You closed the gap between the two of you, and you stood in front of him. You didn't look up until he bumped into your legs. Nicholas snickered. He tried to dash around you, so you had to shift to the left to block his progress. Then he went to right, and you speedily sidestepped. Soon you were both in a game of back and forth, as though you were actually trying to play a game of soccer, and Nicholas was trying to get past you to score. The soccer ball tumbled from his arms. Oh, hey, Nicholas! You're hanging out with me, just like Derek does. Nicholas paused, finally interested. He raised one of his bushy eyebrows. You'd said the magic word. Like Derek. He spends a lot of time coming to see me, remember? Now it's your turn to be the person I have fun with. Pretty cool. Nicholas's cheeky grin fell, but his eyes began to sparkle. He pumped one of his fists in the air. Yeah, I'm hanging out with Callie! With him cheering, you sighed in relief. You made a mental note if you needed attention. Nicholas's attention just mentioned Derek. Let's go back to the clover patch. This is a nice place to hang out. You led him closer to Harry. Even if the middle Suarez could manage himself, he shouldn't entirely be on his own. The only times you strayed from the Suarez was when you blinked or sent the occasional glance to Harry's way. Harry continued to enjoy his time at the park without any need for assistance, so you spent most of your energy on the mischief maker. After smoothing out after the initial bump of the afternoon, things evened out. At least things were fine until the trail of known as lunch arrived. It started with the reappearance of Derek. His presence sent Nicholas into hyperdrive. He bounced on the tips of his toes and waved both of his hands frantically. Derek's back! He tackled his older brother and latched around Derek's left leg. Like Hardy, like the other half of the park, noticed the shout. He jogged over to see if there was any important updates were happening without him. Derek winked. Hey bros!
What's up?
Hi Callie. I hope you're doing alright. As he spoke, he let his bag drop to the ground. He crouched over it and scrounged up the packed lunches. I'm having fun! That's awesome! You beamed back at him. Despite being a handful, you were enjoying Nicholas. You kept on your toes. Are you having fun, Nicholas? Yeah! Me too. What about you, Harry?
Yeah.
Yeah. set aside 3 paper bags on the grass. One in front of Nicholas, another next to Clary, and the third one to you. Derek kept the 4th lunch inside his backpack. He only pulled a water bottle out from it and closed the bag back up. Okay, Nicholas. You've got to eat now with Callie and Clary. Nicholas clenched Derek's jeans more desperately as he whined. You're not going to eat with me? Derek scratched the back of his head and gave a longing glance back to where he'd been practicing. You mind, Callie? I was hoping I'd have more time to practice. He bit his lip, hope clear on his face. He had confidence that you could handle lunch alone. Sure. Good luck with your practice. Thanks. I owe you one. Nicholas' whimpering never stopped being high-pitched background noise. Derek ruffled his hair. Hey, check this out. He picked up Nicholas's soccer ball and placed it on top of his own head. Nicholas's jaw dropped theoretically as Derek stood back up while keeping it balanced. Wow! Nicholas cheered and jumped up and down, still holding onto Derek's leg. Derek bent his knees, then popped up fast enough to launch the ball in the air. He caught it on his head again. Ha! Nicholas let go of his brother to clap. Derek grinned at Nicholas, but his gaze flicked to you for a second. The show over, Derek inclined his head and let the soccer ball drop onto his hands. He held it out to Nicholas. Make sure to eat a good lunch, okay? Then you can get back to practicing. Okay. Nicholas spoke into the soccer ball that he had cuddled to his face. He had been starstruck enough that he couldn't disagree with his biggest brother. But then his biggest brother said. Derek waved at you and Clary before heading off to where he'd left his football, only carrying the water bottle with him. Clary promptly took a seat in the grass by the lunch bags. Nicholas put the soccer ball on his head. It immediately rolled off. He just tried again. He reached over to the lunches. Each bag had clearly written a name in black marker ink. Clary clicked his bag, you had yours, and you attempted to give the last one to its proper owner. But Nicholas showed zero interest in the bag. You imagined he would have more interest in Derek's lunch bag, even though they probably had the same meals. Clary scoffed, knowing his brother was going to be difficult again. He took a sandwich from his bag. From looks alone, you guessed it was sliced deli turkey, a pale-coloured cheese, and some veggies. With Nicholas clearly busy, he took the sandwich out for him. The sandwich was ham and some sort of orangey cheese, cheddar, almost certainly. He offered the food directly to Nicholas, and he still didn't bite. He wanted to play. If you eat, I'll hold the ball on your head for you. Deal? Nicholas chewed on the inside of his cheek, while he carefully contemplated your suggestion. Then the focus melted into a bright smile. Alright. He gave you a determined nod when he was ready to switch. Your fingers fanned out as you reached for the ball and pressed it down into his messy mop of hair. Nicholas cautiously released the ball and you kept it firmly in place. He giggled ecstatically and finally found a way to keep the ball up without using his hands. It just took another person to do it. He retrieved his sandwich and immediately stuffed a big bite into his cheeks. Chuckling, you glanced over to what Clary was doing. Luckily, he didn't need a hand like his brother. He was already enjoying his packed lunch, so he decided not to squander that opportunity. You retrieved your own sandwich with your free hand and dug in. It was definitely an interesting way to enjoy a meal break. Finishing the last corner of your square-shaped meal, you wondered if Miss Suarez had talked to one of your moms beforehand about lunch. The sandwich was made how you would have made it at home. Either she was prepared or very lucky, but considering what her oldest son was like, you were guessing luck had nothing to do with it. Along with the sandwiches, there were also bags of carrots, celery, and a few cookies. Between the 3 of you, it wasn't long before all the snacks were gone. With nothing left to nibble on, Nicholas yawned and curled up in the grass, cuddling the soccer ball against his chest. Clary stood up, watching his little brother fall asleep. Once he was certain Nicholas was down for the count, he started cleaning up the trash. You admired the maturity shown for his age. it wasn't just Derek who had that streak after all. He helped gather the trash while musing about the Suarez brothers. Derek was the oldest, and who his parents relied on. Nicholas was the baby of the family, and for a little kid, he was a force to be reckoned with. Claude was the one stuck in the middle. Hey, I saw your football throws earlier. They were really good. Claude spun around on his heel. He seemed stunned, like he wasn't sure if he imagined your compliment or not. In a couple of years, you could totally get on a junior football team. He nodded, and You nodded, and a bush grew on his face until it reached his ears. Okay. He hurriedly went back to what he was doing before. Claude was embarrassed, but he also noticed there was a bounce in his step that wasn't there before. The park suddenly felt empty with Nicholas asleep. He took up a lot of space despite his tiny size. Chuckling to yourself, you found a comfortable spot in the grass and scanned the area for Derek. You eventually caught sight of him running in the distance. Even from here, you could tell Derek was persistent about his practice. He went back and forth, repeating the same set of moves, reassessing and refining his form every time. Though it wasn't long before he paused to wipe his brow with his black wristband. Derek happened to glance your way at that moment, and realized he had an audience of one. He gave a huge wave with both hands. There, quiet, he crossed both of his arms over his head. And before you knew it, Derek's strides was bringing him back over to you and his brothers. Phew! That's it. I'm gonna be done with practice. I'm back. Welcome back. Thanks for watching Clara and Nicholas. I didn't mean it to be here for so long. Hey, I finally get to be the big sibling. It was cool. The nonchalant way you put it was like the role was easy to step in and out of. Had Derek laughing hard as he collected himself. He rubbed the back of his neck. Then I'm glad I could lend you that for a while. Next he shifted his attention to his brothers. Claude gave a little wave. He'd been patiently waiting for his big brother to wrap up his conversation with you. We're going back. Claude simply got up, not needing any more guidance. While Derek kneeled in the grass nudged Nicholas out of dreamland. A single eye cracked open at first. Then they both popped open wide when he realized who was with him. Derek! Nicholas sprang off the ground, wrapping his arms around his big brother, like a vice grip, and nuzzled into his chest. Derek gave Nicholas's head a single pat.
Let's go.
Practice was good today. Let's go home.
Let's go home.
Let's go home. Nicholas's hushed voice echoing his brother's warm smile on your face. Stretching your arms high overhead, you surveyed the area to make sure that nothing was being left behind. You're all clear, and it felt good to have another solo round of babysitting successfully under your belt. With your leadership, no one got lost, injured, or swallowed something they shouldn't have, or even declared they hated you for eternity. So in your book, you'd say it went fairly well. The 15-minute walk back from the park passed pleasantly. The late afternoon sun fell behind you, and your shadow soon stretched across the sidewalk. You wiggled your fingers, then exaggerated your hand's movement in order to watch the shadow change. Meanwhile, next to you, Derek was finally eating his lunch. Although he had to eat his sandwich with the hand that wasn't clasping Nicholas wasn't clasping tightly onto. Claude entertained himself with the football he still carried. He periodically tossed it up into the air and caught it again. You could easily imagine how the three of them made this trip before, with only three of them. You didn't feel out of place strolling alongside the group. It felt natural. Beaming, you found your gaze settling on Derek again. You knew without a doubt that the way you felt was because of him. He was so good at making you feel welcomed. In the time you made it back safely, and Derek dropped his bag on the floor with a quiet sigh of relief. Any hope he had to take things easy for a second immediately evaporated.
We're going to the pool as soon as we come back.
We're going to the pool as soon as we come back. Nicholas's joy was palpable, parroting Derek's promise from earlier in the day. As the words dawned on him, Derek closed his eyes and breathed deeply. Yep, we are. Get ready. And that was all Nicholas and Harry needed. They both dashed off to their shared bedroom to get changed. Derek slowly opened his eyes, but his tiredness softened when he looked at you.
It's okay.
Practice is done. If you want to stay up here until your moms can come get you, that's cool. Derek gave a partial shrug, then ran a hand through his hair shyly. We don't have to go swimming again. But I want to hang out with you. The tips of his ears burnt red at your declaration, but he didn't turn away from you. He spoke cheerfully instead. Thanks. You too, Callie. It wasn't much longer before the youngest kids came running out to rejoin you and Derek. They both wore their neon-colored swimsuits and had towels wrapped around their shoulders.
Awesome.
Nice job! You even remembered your floaty vest, Nicholas. Derek kneeled down to make sure the safety device was on properly and secured. Nicholas stood tall, with his chest out proudly. He didn't fear the scrutinization. I did the straps for him. Perfect. Thanks. Harry brightened just as his younger brother had, standing back. Derek shifted his attention to you. Same quick change strategy from earlier? Yeah. Your dad had off to get changed first. Derek nodded seriously when you returned to take over for him. He re-emerged a couple minutes later and diligently went over to the counter to write something down. Curious, you inched closer. Just gonna leave a note so Dad knows where we are. Then we can go. Oh, sounds good. Everything was squared away, as Derek was always sure to do. The four of you marched right back out of the apartment for another excursion. By the time the distinct chlorine smell tickled your nose, the sun had fallen low in the sky. You circled around some nearby lounge chairs and deemed them capable of keeping your things safe. Inspecting the gleaming water, you noticed Harry and Nicholas hadn't moved towards the pool yet. Both of the little boys were watching Derek like hawks. You'd picked up enough this afternoon to know it wasn't because Harry didn't want to do anything without permission. Nicholas didn't want to do anything Derek wasn't doing.
I'm on it.
Here I go! And Derek knew it too. He didn't want to keep them waiting. Derek offered his brothers an encouraging wave and strode over to the pool. You ran to beat him in. Breezing past Derek, you caught bits of a gasp and roaring laughter. You couldn't tell what sounds belonged to who before you threw yourself off the edge and crashed into the water. Seconds later, you felt the impact of another person piercing the water beside you. Derek. He stayed under while you went up for air. The other Suarez sons followed in. Harry jumped in without any hesitation, but Nicholas sped right to the edge, only to come to an abrupt stop. His toes curled around the edge of the pool, and his lips were pressed into a tight frown. Nicholas tipped his head and stared down on the water, clutching his hands tight together. He was scared to jump. Nicholas would rather the pool come to the rest of the way to him, though wasn't being a good sport. Derek and Harry popped out of the water with matching wide grins, and droplets clinging to the tips of their hair. Neither were surprised that they were missing their baby brother. Alright. Woohoo! That was awesome. Nicholas' cry for help came out in a tiny impatient squeak. He began to wiggle in place. Derek chuckled and swam over to a shallower spot. The 6-year-old followed closely, toddling along the edge. When his feet touched the pool's solid bottom, Derek stood up. He kindly held his arms out towards his brother.
This is gonna be great.
Come on, Nico, the water's fine. Trusting him completely, Nicholas let go of his fear. He took in a step over the side and walked to his favorite person's hold. Derek embraced Nicholas as he dropped against his chest. Then Derek slowly lowered him closer to the water before he completely let his little brother go. Nicholas bobbed under with a small splash and broke out again, like in an instant, like a buoy. He was bursting at the seams with excitement. Woo! Nicholas made the most of his new floating freedom by dog paddling around the shallow end. Checking on Harry, you noticed he was sticking to the center of the pool. He bounced himself from the floor to the surface for air, and pushed back down to do it all over again. He lapped all around in a circle. Derek rested an arm across the pool's edge, and took a moment to watch his brothers too. You swam over to Derek, and settled against the wall with him. You closed your eyes and sighed. The water's temperature was pleasantly warm, against the cooling evening air. Derek kept his main focus on his family, though he spared a moment to tilt his head in your direction. A few beads of water trailed from his hairline down to the side of his jaw. Maybe sitting went as well as you thought, huh? Yeah, I think it went pretty well.
Honestly,
My brothers are fun. Some of the time. He chuckled at his own joke and ran a damp hand down his face to try and get at least some of the water off. The final rays of sunlight cast a warm glow onto his skin, and the pool sparkled as he finally had his attention directly towards you. You felt toastier all of a sudden, like someone had pulled the sun back up to the center of the sky. Derek's mouth turned into his usual wonderful smile. I don't know what I'd do without them. God damn it. You sound like a proud dad. He smiled at your teasing, but it quickly lost its force as his cheeks grew pink. Derek hid his face in his hands. I don't even want to think about being a real parent right now. Being the oldest kid is enough for me. Shaking his head, he kept his brothers in his sight. The affection returned to his expression. I am proud of them, though. Chloe and Nicholas remained engrossed with their own watery adventures, while you and Derek kept track of them. You were in mid-conversation when the sound of footsteps echoed off the walls surrounding the pool. Derek shot an arm out the water and waved at the newcomer. Dad!
Good evening.
Good evening. Dad! Dad? All the Suarez boys eagerly paddled over to the end of the pool where their father stood. They moved together in the water with their heads beside each other, and their legs kicked out behind them like the pair of sea puppies.
Welcome home.
Welcome home.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. Mr. Suarez's voice was as sweet as he observed his children's happy faces. Eventually he spotted you as well, and he tucked his fingers into the edge of his vest with vigor. Oh, this is a proper pool party today. You know, a party should have proper food. Let's order pizza for dinner tonight. Yeah! Yeah! Laughing with excitement, Nicholas started smacking the palms of his hands against the water surface, making several bursting splashes. Harvey flicked the droplets from the tips of his finger at Nicholas in retaliation. Jumping out of the scene, Mr. Suarez brought up a hand and held it onto his chin, stretching out his beard with a thumb. Half cheese, half pepperoni for the first, correct? Yes! Pepperoni! Nicholas threw both his arms in the air as he cheered. Mr. Suarez nodded, pleased his little ones still had predictable tastes.
Wonderful.
Okay, and meat and veggie supreme for Irene and I on the second. He set out his gaze on Derek and you for the final decision. Suggestions for the final half should be... Kelly, you pick. You lowered closer to Derek as you thought about it. Derek, what do you normally get? Usually the barbecue chicken, but you should get whatever you want. I like other stuff too, so don't worry. In that case, barbecue chicken. Derek gave you a big thumbs up for that. So, in full. Half cheese, half pepperoni, half supreme, and half barbecue chicken.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you, children. I'll put in the order now. I'll come back to let you know when it's ready. Until then, continue to play. Thanks, Dad. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dad. Bye, Mr. Suarez. Mr. Suarez closed the pool gate behind him, leaving you kids to have your fun. In Mr. Suarez's absence, Derek took charge again. Alright, you heard it. Dad's ordering pizza, so it'll be here in like 30 minutes. The thing is fast. What's the last thing you want to do before we have to leave the pool? Nicholas furrowed his brow, thinking hard as he could. He scrunched his face together in frustration when nothing came to mind. Meanwhile, Clara put a hand to his chin and tilted his head to the side. He stared up and off into space as he considered the question. While they were distracted, you made the first strike in this splash fight. The younger Suarez brothers might have been unsure or overwhelmed with how they wanted to spend the remaining pool time. You weren't. You knew exactly what you wanted to do. You subtly angled your position in the water, carefully deciding your plan of attack. With the corner of your mouth bent, you flung a mighty splash towards Derek. He ended up with a face full of water. He spluttered before shaking it off with laughter. As he regained his composure, Derek brushed a hand down his face again, wiped some droplets away. Callie, I'm sure you know what this means. Derek's stare narrowed with a fierce amused look of determination. You matched it and gave an added slow nod. I believe I do.
It's on.
This means war. He swiftly sent a shower of water in your direction. Nicholas cackled at your exchange, and he started to excitedly beat the water surface, sending droplets crashing in all directions. You twisted away from their attacks, and the second the water settled, you struck. Pushing your hands forwards, you sent another big wave crashing towards the brothers. Derek sent splashes with both hands on either sides, juggling you and Nicholas. Nicholas poured the water, covered it in his hands, and threw it in the air. The droplets carelessly poured down on everyone. Nicholas was dangerous in this fight. He was willing to take a hit to get hit. Out of the four of you, Clara enacted the best defense strategy. He took a deep breath and held it while he stood underwater. Only his hands remained at the surface, and they rapidly splashed in all directions. Clara's strategy kept you all on your toes, in order to avoid his scatter shot. Whenever he came up there, Derek made sure to be ready to take a shot. It was a grand battle. The four of you thoroughly enjoyed your time at the pool. It flew by so fast that you were surprised when you spotted Mr. Suarez cruising down to the water's edge once more. Dinner's here, and even better, Mom's home. Yay! Younger Suarez threw his wet confetti in the air one more time. Even his dad wasn't safe from it. Mr. Suarez took it in stride and wiped his glasses against his vest. Derek was out of breath, but he beamed. Let's go get some food. Yeah. Mr. Suarez led the way to the apartment, and the four of you kids marched with eager sprint and in your step. Despite being wrapped in towels, you dripped water the whole way there. The savory smell of hot cheese and garlic crust was there to greet you when you arrived at the door. You could hear the musical words of Mrs. Suarez, too.
Welcome.
Welcome home. Hi. Hi, Mom.
Hi.
Hi, Mom. Feeling a bit awkward in our place, you gave a tiny wave. Miss Suarez didn't miss it, and her voice softened as she spoke to you first. Hello, Callie. I hope you had a fun day today. I did. We had lots of fun.
That's great.
Very good. Mrs. Suarez then went over to the kitchen where the food was set on the counter. She folded the boxes open and lightly glanced over her husband. This was such a good idea. Thank you. Mr. Suarez dipped his head in a tiny bow. He followed that by gesturing a hand towards the food.
Well then.
Come get your dinner, youngest to oldest. Despite the order being given, it was no surprise that Harry was the first who moved. He figured Nicholas would wait for Derek, even if he didn't have to. Harry tore off a paper towel from the roll and used it to grab a slice of plain cheese pizza. He'll footed back to the entryway, standing there so he wouldn't bring water further into the apartment. You can go in next, Callie. It'll be easier that way. The food smelled even better up close. I was reading the options and it just put my mouse over somewhere. You grab a slice of barbecue chicken. You hurried back to the entryway with your dinner. Derek went next, tiptoeing with Nicholas at his heel. He grabbed a slice of pepperoni and passed it to Nicholas. Derek then grabbed a slice of barbecue chicken for himself. Instead of going to the entryway, he went for an open space on the floor. He curiously watched as Derek laid his towel on the floor, then sat down, crossing his legs. Nicholas popped on the towel right next to him, and he started on one with his pizza crust corners. You decided to sit on your towel instead. Oh, that's a good idea. Follow Derek's example and laid your own towel out on the floor. With cheeks stuffed with pizza, Derek gave you the cherriest closed mouth smile he could. Are you good then, Mr. Bear? You look a little confused. Finally, Mr. and Mrs. Suarez got their pizza slices. They stood in the living room, in between spots their sons had taken.
So,
how did you spend your day while we were out? We did lots of things. In between taking big bites of pizza, the Suarez family started taking turns and telling stories about their day. Nicholas recounted the events of the day with the most enthusiasm. Even though they were the same plot points from his brother's stories, the ones you witnessed firsthand, from his perspective, the events were almost mythically amazing. Storytelling was a hungry work, so the slices didn't last long at all. The food was chipped away piece by piece until everyone was stuffed. Nicholas lay down on the floor, limbs stretched out, and still wrapped in his towel. He was completely tuckered from the day. Mr. Suarez plucked him up from the floor and held him under one arm. Bath time. Come on, Junior.
Yes, Dad.
Yes, Dad. Oh, did not mean to do that. Nicholas accepted his fate, and his arms hung limply down. Harry crumpled up his paper towel into a ball and tossed it in the trash. He followed his dad.
thank you.
Thank you, Gregorio. Mrs. Suarez watched them go with gentle affection in her gaze. He patted husband's shoulder as he passed by, then strolled over to you and Derek. And thank you for a good day's work. I appreciate you both taking care of Nicholas and Harry today. The cheeriness reminded you so much of Derek's. She pointed with her thumb over her shoulder. Dad and I will take them from here. Thanks, Mom. You could see the wave of relief wash over him, as clearly as the usual water you just swam in. I'll keep an eye out for the phone. Pamela said she would call when they're on their way here to get Callie. Okay. After that, Miss Suarez excused herself to go get Harry and Nicholas ready for bedtime. When she disappeared down the hall, Derek leaned back on the palms of his hands. He lazily rolled his head in your direction.
Hey.
We can get dressed again. Then would you want to hang out in my room until your mums get here? Yeah, let's do that. You can get changed first. He stretched his legs out on the floor while you stood up. You could feel a slight ache in your muscles from today's activities. It wasn't bad. You had given your all during your babysitting adventure. Getting your things in your arms. You'll have to get changed. It wasn't long before you and Derek went over to his room for some sibling-less free time. Derek opened his bedroom door and gestured for you to the way. He went in while he followed close behind, shutting the door once more. And this is what the room looks like. There's some nice purple for the rug and the pillow. A lot of books, a lot of balls, a megaphone. What feels out of place to me is that baseball. Like, unless it's a signed baseball, it doesn't feel like it matches with Derek. Like, I'm pretty sure all his books are either school books, biographies, or something related with his sports. So, yeah. It's still a cool room nonetheless. Derek opened his bedroom door and gestured for you to lead the way. Did I already read that? I don't know. You went in while you followed close behind you and the door once more. Your eyes widened as you scanned the small space. Usually you were outside when you hung out with Derek. This is the first time you've been inside his room. Within the reach of his neatly made bed was a bookshelf filled with novels, various scattered soccer balls and footballs stuck out around the books and furniture. The things were arranged and organized with the same care Derek put into most things he did. If there was more time, you were sure there was tons of trinkets and treasures to spot here, like a game of I Spy. It wasn't big, but Derek made most of his small pieces of the world. Are you sure you have enough? Are you sure you have enough soccer balls and footballs? You pivoted on your heels to face him. Derek laughed, and you put your hands on your hips and raised a skeptical eyebrow.
Anyway.
You saw how things went down at the park today. I like to be prepared. You should have at least 2 backups of stuff. That's the most important in your life. And when you feel like that, then no. I don't think I have nearly enough. We gotta get our room filled. We gotta fill the room with them. You both bent to the waist, giggling at that image. Composing himself, Derek rubbed at his eyes with the palm of his hand. Honestly, it's just an easy gift my relatives go for when they don't know with what else I might want. At least I'll never run out with stuff to practice with.
Sorry.
But anyway, I don't have any chairs in here. You can sit on my bed if you want. Thanks, I appreciate that. You laid across his bed. You sighed loudly, letting yourself melt into the cozy blankets. Derek crossed his arms and laughed loudly. Sure, get comfortable. You playfully propped yourself on your elbow and rested your chin on the palm of your hand. Derek crossed over to the foot of his bed and sat there at the end of it. His jaw stretched open in a huge yawn that he quickly covered with his hand.
Good job, team.
Phew, we're finally done. There was no missing the proud satisfaction burning in his green eyes, but you could also consequently see the places where he was wilting. Sometimes you kind of worry about how he threw himself wholeheartedly into things all the time. It was nice spending the day babysitting. His expression softened fondly, and he suddenly studied your face, chewing at you what you were unsure of what he was thinking. You had meant what you said. I'm really glad today worked out. My brothers were happy too. Derek stretched his arms high in the air and yawned again. His eyelids drooped as he turned towards you. Derek stretched his arms high in the air, yawned again. His eyelids drooped as he turned towards you. Gradually, the carefree warmth faded from his demeanor. His face fell into a quiet frown when his hand's head returned to his lap.
You don't have to.
You don't have to do it again, Callie. Whether it's a good time or a bad time, it's just a lot of time and you have your own things to deal with. Your brows bent at that, tilting your head. You couldn't help but think how much Derek's days went to his brothers. It definitely didn't seem to match how things were doing with you and your sister. But then, as if summoned by your thoughts about him, the bedroom door creaked open, just enough to let giggling Nicholas slip in. He threw his hands in the air. "I'm dressed!" With a loud thud, the door swung fully open, and Harry marched in with an extremely annoyed scowl. He put his hands on his hips. You sprang up and kicked your legs over the side of the mattress. Lazing on the bed wasn't on the schedule anymore. Nicholas, we're playing in the living room, not Derek's room. Clary reached for his younger brother, but Nicholas scurried up onto the bed. He warily peeked at Clary from Derek's shoulder. Derek notably didn't say a single word, nor did he appear surprised about the intrusion at all. The only movement he made was a light pat on the mess of Nicholas's head, like usual. What wasn't usual on the distant look on his face, he had accepted reality on his hand, but did not welcome it. Mr. and Mrs. Suarez crowded into the room next.
Excuse us.
Excuse us. Sorry, Derek, he slipped away in a flash. Yeah.
No more.
Come on, Nicholas, let Derek and Kelly have some peace. The younger Suarez stubbornly climbed onto Derek's arm. His cheeks flushed out angrily. Nicholas, go hang out with Mom and Dad. Don't you want to see them too? They missed you today. Don't you want to see Mom and Dad too? Come on, Derek. Nicholas loosened his grip as he shifted to get a better look at his big brother. Derek sighed spiritlessly. I do, but I have a friend over right now. I'll spend time with Mom and Dad and you later. Nicholas bent forward and grabbed Derek's pant leg. He brought out the big guns and stared up at him with his most pitiful eyes and matching pout. You rubbed your eyes in frustration. The wear and tear of the day started to hit you. You bit the inside of your cheek, focusing on not saying anything you would immediately regret. But you couldn't help but bubble with rage over how bad the situation was. Babysitting was one thing, but at this rate you'd never get more than 5 minutes to talk with Derek. Just because Nicholas was the baby didn't mean. You shook your head, trying to calm down. You glanced back at the brothers, and your jaw clenched, recognizing Nicholas wasn't going to budge a single inch.
End of discussion.
Nicholas, we're reading a story right now. Nicholas angrily shook his head as she advanced across the room. She unapologetically peeled her smallest child off Derek. The young boy let out a high-pitched whine for the entire extraction. Clara frowned sympathetically over the confrontation, while Derek winced at the noise. When the deed was done, the middle child followed his mom out of the room. You could still hear Nicholas' piercing cry as he was carried away. I'm very sorry about the interruption. Continue as you were. None of us were ever here. Gave the both of you an encouraging smile, before carefully shutting the door again. It was finally silent. Derek kept an eye out until he honestly believed there wouldn't be immediately another sibling disaster. When he deemed it safe, he let out a quick sigh and attempted to choke back a harsher groan. He folded back against the mattress with another huff and stretched his arms out at his side. His arms twitched and his fingers curled up into fists. There's never any privacy here. How am I supposed to deal with things even after spending a whole day with them? You held your tongue, waiting patiently for him to get all out. Derek muttered grievances under his breath, with harsh glare aimed at the ceiling for a good minute, and screwing his mouth shut. At least your brothers don't think they're the boss, like Elizabeth. Prison in his eyes, Derek allowed a snort, then a short laugh. He rubbed his face with the palm of his hands. You got me there. Though I think Nicholas might be getting close to that sometimes. Oh man, could you imagine them all as a team? The world might really have to start revolving around them. That image sent a shiver down your spine. Crossing your arms, you frowned. Good thing Elizabeth doesn't like to be friends with people younger than her. She would be doomed. Chuckling, Derek beat back at you through his fingers. His mood appeared leaps and bounds brighter than it was minutes ago. Evening his breath, Derek folded his arms across his chest and squeezed his eyelids shut. You could tell by the tension on his face that he was still bothered. He was thinking hard, searching for something.
Man.
I can make this work. His low mumble was followed by a pause that had you intrigued. Then he jumped forward, so that he was sitting upright again. The grin you were so used to seeing was back in full force. Kelly, wanna go back to the pool? Nobody's gonna be there late. My bros aren't gonna be able to leave the house. We don't have to get in or even change clothes. I think it would just be kind of a nice place to talk and that sort of thing. Avoiding your gaze, Derek nervously rubbed the back of his head. You could tell that he was trying his hardest to be nonchalant, but he wasn't exactly succeeding. Good thinking. Alright! Derek leapt up to his feet and turned and held a hand for you to take. Chuckling, you gripped his hand tightly. Derek squeezed you back and helped pull you to your feet. Let's go! The door slowly creaked open as Derek peeked out, double-checking the coast was actually clear. He gave you a thumbs up. I don't see Nicholas. I think we're good. You returned his thumbs up, silently hoping that this wasn't the calm before the storm. Derek led you to the living room, where you found his dad and Corey sitting together on the couch. Hello. Mom has Nicholas in his room, enraptured in another exciting session of story time. Good. Kelly and I were gonna go down to the pool area to hang out. Is that okay?
Of course.
Of course. He chuckled, knowing exactly what Derek was trying to accomplish. Corey was perfectly happy where he was, his dad, so he waved goodbye to you both. Don't keep Kelly out too late. I won't. Thanks, Dad. Derek whispered with complete confidence. You gave your appreciation in an equally hushed tone. Thank you, Mr. Suarez. The last thing either of you wanted was to alert the youngest Suarez that anything fun was happening without his knowledge, so you both silently slipped out of the apartment. Once you were free from the condo's walls, Derek's excitement was palpable. He picked up the pace and raced to the pool gate. For the third time in a single day, you and Derek stepped foot on the condo's complex private pool deck. But you soon realized you hadn't seen anything offered yet. Under the cover of the night, the pool was completely aglow with lights set into its bottom. The bright blue struck you as inviting breaths of steam drifted to the top of the water, whispering how warm it was. The closed-in space was clear of any other people, and it had been like that for a while considering the stillness of the pool. Not a single ripple disrupted its aquamarine surface. Here you'd have peace and privacy. Derek was drawn to the water like a moth to flame. He wordlessly rolled up his jeans and tugged off his sneakers and socks. Then he dunked his feet right into the pool, up to the middle of his calf. He stretched and wiggled his bare toes the comfortable embrace of the heated pool on a summer night. He joined Derek at the edge. You dipped your feet in as well. You removed your own shoes and socks. You moved your own shoes and let your feet soak in the pool. It was pleasant as its sparkling appearance promised. The water had none of the slight chill that the air did. It was a perfect amount of heat. Derek wrapped both his hands around the smooth tile edge and tilted back. One of his legs kicked up as his back drifted down, like his upper and lower body were one side of a seesaw. He grinned playfully at you.
But
So, what were we talking about? Well, you were saying that you liked having my help and it wasn't my job to watch your brothers and I didn't have to do it again. Oh, yeah. He's only brought his torso back up until he was hunched over the water. He stared down at it. All his lightheartedness disappeared in an instant. Things were already kind of a bummer before I got interrupted. That sucks. There wasn't any heart, but Derek managed to chuckle. Sorry for making my problems your problem. He dug his fingers into the side of his hair, scratching at in frustration.
Self-voicing enabled.
Oops.
Self-voicing disabled.
I don't even know what my problem is. They came in my room for 5 seconds. I'm so dramatic. It annoyed me and I don't even live here. I don't know how you survive. Yeah. Derek crossed his arms tight and pushed them against the top of his legs. The blue water rippled around him as his legs moved across the pool wall. He pressed his heels into it. The pressure that had only been on the inside was coming out. It's just the thing is, Nicholas and Harry need me all the time, and my parents need me because they need me. I don't want to let them down, I really don't, but it's hard. Every day it's like I'm gonna mess up and disappoint somebody. He bit his tongue and released his limbs from the locked positions they'd been stuck in. He couldn't scrub away the furrowed brows.
Forget it.
Forget it. Everyone has stuff to worry about. It's not just me. Mom has to take care of them way more than I do. Dad works a job pretty much the entire day. So what if they do things, too? You deserve to be happy.
I don't know.
I don't know. He went silent, unmoved. Nicholas was usually the one who caused trouble, but sometimes Derek had made himself the bad guy. It was upsetting, but Derek wasn't anywhere close to really being grown up. Of course he couldn't be perfect, even though he acted like he thought he should be. Derek, remember when your dad first came to the pool? You, Harry, and Nicholas were also excited. You were just like your brothers. Even if you're in charge sometimes, you're still your parents' kid. You don't have to act like an adult, especially not with me. Finally, slowly and carefully, Derek dared to glance at you again. Thanks, Callie, for saying that. His shoulders squished inward to his frame, his lowered head. He looked so much like a hopeful puppy that he could give Nicholas a run for his money in the adorable face department.
Was it annoying?
It really doesn't matter that I bother you when I complain, and sometimes hanging out with me means helping out 2 other kids. For all the confidence Derek displayed, when push came to shove, he was pretty insecure about himself and what you thought of him. As long as you don't mind dealing with Elizabeth when you visit me. Derek showed his full face at you. It was lit up by the light shining through the water. The smile on his face was just as glittering. I don't ever want to be a pain, but it's really cool to have a friend who doesn't mind listening to me and being there. He didn't say that lightly. He only wanted to let himself be there for you and everyone else. Being somebody Derek could count on was special. His cheeks flushed with just admitting it, but with the way your heart fluttered, you were sure your face was a match. Then his eyebrows furrowed mischievously, and just like that, he catapulted right off the towel edge into the pool. You gasped as if you were the one who suddenly got plunged underwater. Derek burst through the surface with a loud gasping laugh. The water is great! You're way too impulsive sometimes. Yeah,
This is gonna be great.
everything's gonna be good, Callie. I'm not an adult. That was true. You pushed yourself off the edge of the pool right after him. In an instant, you were hit with an explosion of bubbles as you sunk down into the water. You waited until you felt the pool floor and kicked off it, and popped your head out of the water. Whoa! Derek pumped both his fists in the air. His black wristband drooped further down his arms, being heavy from being soaked. The two of you paddled through the water together. The added weight of your clothes had you both winded pretty quick. That only amused Derek more. Laughter and sloshing water brought the once stagnant pool to life. You and Derek still had the place to yourself and made the absolute most of it. Eventually, Derek crawled up the stairs and out of the pool. His baggy clothes poured out a mini waterfall with every step he took on land. Derek looked especially tiny in his drenched jersey draped over his frame. He waited there at the top of the steps for you to catch up, being the drifting gentleman he was. You held the rail, and with each step of the stairs, you felt the weight of your clothes pressing down on you more. You got a thumbs up from Derek when you made it out. Then he carefully tipped his head to the side and tapped his hands against his ear to get the water out.
Well,
Alright, time to face the music. Having to go home dampened Derek's mood far more than the water on his body. He could do anything here in the wide open pool with you as his only companion. Going back to his family came with countless expectations and responsibilities, but it still had to be done. Yeah. You gave a small nod, readying yourself for whatever might happen when you arrive at the Suarez condo. Without another word, you collected your shoes, and you left the little oasis behind. You held each other's hands. His slippery fingers gripped you as tightly as they could. When you made it to the front door, Derek used a key from his pocket to open it. He hadn't forgotten to bring it, despite leaving under rushed and uneasy circumstances. Derek stood there in the front of the unlocked door, just staring at it. Practical preparation was his forte. Making himself ready for bumps in relationships probably was not. I'll call you back, Derek. We can do it. Yeah. He took in a huge breath through his nose and turned the knob. The living room was quiet when you went inside. Clara and Mr. Suarez had moved over to the kitchen and were busy putting together a puzzle. Mr. Suarez's shoulder blocked your view, so you couldn't see what the picture was supposed to be. Mrs. Suarez and Nicholas were nowhere in sight. You guessed they were still in the younger boy's room. It was strange not having someone to cheer and shout when Derek walked through the door. There was a feeling of absence. We're back. He announced himself with an absolute lack of enthusiasm. He might as well have been calling off bingo numbers to an empty room. Mr. Suarez lifted his head and turned to face the both of you. At the same time, he eagerly pushed his chair away from the counter.
I see.
I see. Thank you for coming home. The greeting he gave was so normal that it was weird considering how you and Derek each brought a bucket full of water absorbed into your clothes. Harley offered a typical family greeting of his own, not taking his eyes off the puzzle. He was either focused or avoiding the awkwardness.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Derek silently poked a big toe onto the prickly entryway doormat. The mess Derek's foot was making was too much for the little mat to contain. Water leaked out from its edges. Derek's attempt to face his family was going equally smooth. The bright pleasantries on Mr. Suarez's face softened into warmth. He followed through on the motion he started and got out of his chair. He crossed the living room to stand with the two of you at the front door. My hard-working son is always in demand. Our family needs to learn how to share. especially Nicholas. The last part was said with a little chuckle. Derek didn't smile from the compliment, but he did start to blush.
Excuse me.
Excuse us. A new voice came from the hall. Miss Suarez stood there with her hands on her hips. Peeking out from behind the skirt of her dress was a distinct, spiky nest of brown hair. Now that you're here, someone has something he wants to say to his big brother. Her words got Clary to actually turn away from the puzzle and watch the scene, but Nicholas remained hidden. Her encouragement wasn't enough, but as always, he was waiting for Derek. He didn't need to tell Derek that, though. He knew it far better than you. He shifted his weight on his feet and gave Nicholas an invitation.
Okay.
Okay then, what do you want to say? Nicholas started out from behind his mom, enough speed to flutter her dress. His tiny little feet bended over the floor until he came to an abrupt stop right in front of his favorite person. He had to lean his head all the way back to look into Derek's eyes. Derek looked down to meet the gaze. Nicholas resisted the urge to hug him and instead clutched at the collar of his own shirt.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, that's your room. From how much Nicholas struggled to explain his apology, it was obvious he wasn't at a point where he understood why being together all the time wasn't a completely fantastic idea. All that had gone through to him was that he upset his brother, and that in turn upset him. Nicholas bit his lip and moved his hands to pull at the bottom of his shirt instead of at the top. The best he could come up with was simply repeating himself. Sorry. Derek's lips quacked just a bit as he patiently listened to his little brother. You should say sorry to them too. Kelly helped you a lot today, too. Nicholas instantly twisted his head towards you and echoed the word. He was very serious. Okay. Sorry, Callie. Thank you, Nicholas. Nicholas hopped up on the pads of his feet as a nervous, hopeful energy came over him. Your reaction was the first positive sign he'd gone. As Miss Suarez glanced between you and Derek, and surely. He let his shirt go and brought his hands into fists. I'm sorry, Derek. I'm sorry, Callie. Nicholas put everything he had into willing whatever problem he caused to be fixed and into people not feeling bad anymore. The emotional display of regret moved someone in the room to speak.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too. Derek snorted a laugh at the unexpected interjection. What did you even do? I don't know. The little child looked down at the puzzle in front of him again, but he was staring through the pieces as if they weren't there. He murmured just barely loud enough to hear from where you were standing. You and Callie had to watch me today too. Derek hesitancy completely crumbled, and his usual familial dynamic came back in full force.
Aww.
Clary, you don't have to apologize for that. I like to spend some time by myself or with my friends, but I never want to stop having my little bros. Nicholas's massively wide eyes sparkled. For the first time since they were reunited, he carefully reached out for Derek and groped his soaking wet jeans. Derek reached down to pat his baby brother's head, as he did probably every day. Neither boy cared that this time the hand was down. Instead, they both smiled at the other, with unwavering affection. No matter what visions happened, it was inevitable that it would end that way, because they both loved their family equally and deeply. Another person took a turn to cut in as Mr. Suarez spoke up with vigor.
Let's race!
Derek, Callie, let's race! What? Derek chuckled at your confusion, switched his headed pat into a full-on hair ruffle. Nicholas giggled excitedly along with his brother. Dad is asking us to play a video game. I don't kart racer he likes. Yes, and I will win it. Derek's dad cheerfully tacked that on. It couldn't be forgotten, clearly. Clary could be playful. Mrs. Suarez was the only one who truly kept a distance during the recollection between Derek and Nicholas, but now she had joined in the rest of the family. When she was close enough to you and Derek to whisper, she pressed a hand to the corner of her mouth and winked conspiratorially. I'll give Nico an unplugged controller. Derek grinned at that point and shifted into giving the longest strands of Nicholas's hair a friendly tug, but he didn't accept the invite immediately. He included you in the discussion. What do you think, Callie? It's up to you. He nodded, and turned to answer his father. Alright, let's race. Derek's mom encouraged you and Derek with her words, and Nicholas with her hand taking him by the shoulders. This time, she wouldn't be letting him get away from her.
Go on.
You'll get changed. We'll plug it in, so it'll be ready by the time you're back. Callie, you're welcome to use my or Mr. Suarez's pajamas if Derek doesn't have anything you can borrow. It'll be big, but it's better than nothing. Thanks, Mom. Derek's mood continued to be buoyed by the support of his parents, and he left to go get changed while walking as lightly as he could in his work clothes. Followed the watery footprints he left behind to dry off too. He did a quick change while you waited with a towel wrapped around you to minimize your clothes dripping. He came out of his room wearing black sweats with a matching top. Now he wasn't spilling water everywhere he went. He offered to get you something to wear. Derek rattled off what kind of pajamas his family had on hand. He apologized twice for the fact that he was so much shorter than you and had nothing you could fit in. You reassured him that it wasn't his fault. You're the one who chose to get wet when you didn't have an extra pair of clothes of your own. Ultimately, you borrowed a burned-down pajama shirt and pants from Mr. Suarez. It was extremely baggy considering the type of design of it was more proper looking than other types of PJs. But the melted way it looked on you was extremely funny. What mattered most was that you were finally warm and dry. Your skin still had lingering goosebumps from your dip in the pool. Derek gave you a friendly thumbs up. He was nothing but polite about your outfit situation. He bundled up the pile of wet clothes and carried them off to the laundry. He spoke over his shoulder as he walked past as fast as he could with dripping clothes in his arms. I'll get your stuff back to you next time I visit, okay? Okay. As promised, the Suarez Dark Purple GameCube was fully connected, with full control was plugged in. By the time you and Derek strolled into the living room, wearing your new dicks, a familiar shout filled the room. All was right in the world. Derek's back! Yep, Nico, I'm here. Miss Suarez was on the carpet with Nicholas in her lap. She'd already passed him a controller, and he was having the blast pressing the little cookie buttons, despite the fact they did nothing except make a little noise. Clary and Mr. Suarez took seats on the couch. Clary tucked himself close against his father, so the two were taken up one side. The other half of the couch was reserved for you and Derek. Derek dove into the spot next to Clary. He got settled in nicely against the plush back of the cushion and folded his legs up across the cushion. Yeah, I just realized one of the words I said cushion was couch. I didn't realize that. Oh well. You got in the final place and relaxed against the armrest. Clary passed one controller to Derek, which Derek gave to you, then handed over a second, which Derek kept. Mr. Suarez filled you in on a decision he and his second son had made.
What do you think?
Junior and I are on a team. You and Callie can play together. What do you think? Derek tilted his head your way. He lifted his shoulders and added on to Dad's briefing. It's a double racer. One drives, the other controls items. I love that game. And I obviously pressed the wrong button. Me too. It's me and you then. The deal was sealed. Pacts had been made. Harry packed up and shook Mr. Suarez's arm. Hey Dad, we're Team Suarez. Yes, we are. Derek's fingers were on the buttons, and he was leaning over his crossed legs in anticipation for the game to begin. He replied unbothered. Vote for you guys. With his gaze still glued to the TV, a cheeky grin pulled out his lips. Derek spoke one more thing under his breath. That was just meant for him, but you was staying close enough to still catch him. I don't mind being on Team Wolf. He giggled sweetly, being squished into a couch so close to him felt being even warmer. All four players making up two teams chose their characters, cards, positions, and the track set. To start, Derek and Mr. Suarez was driving. You and Holiday had item launching duty. 3, 2, 1. The cards launched across the starting line, with both drivers getting an extra boost. Team Wolf and Team Suarez were off down the colourful jungle road. There would be 3 laps before the race was over. Lap 1 was a frantic race for the top spot. The cars were neck to neck to each other, over every hill and around every curve, neither getting ahead or falling behind. Attacks were constantly exchanged, and buttons were being pressed at rapid speeds. That included Nicholas, as he watched the race and tried to use his controller the way everyone else was. He wondered which part of the game he thought it was impacting. By lap 2, Team Wolf had taken a strong lead. Almost nothing from the Suarez camp could reach your car. Once he passed the start line to start lap 3, Derek was cocky enough to bring out the smack talk. I thought you were gonna win, Dad. Mrs. Suarez's expression was completely content. More than that, it was serene. And with that calm face, Derek's father carefully reached across Harry, and in the blink of an eye, locked his large hand over the comparatively tiny controller Derek held. Oh, they cheat. Hey! The car you and Derek had shared went out of control, careening off the dirt path into a pit. You had to wait for the game to fish you out and place you back on the road. Team Suarez rolled on past. See? I'm winning now. Derek's dad was boldly unapologetic. He grinned like a child who just found out you could get hole-in-one at putt-putt golf if you just dropped the ball in a hole. You're cheating now. Derek sputtered with laughter made of equal parts amusement and disbelief. He yanked his arms towards his chest to fight for freedom, but Mr. Suarez's grip was unmovable. We're running interference, huh? From a distance, Miss Suarez mused over the situation that had begun to unfold. Her husband stole a look at where she'd been sitting. He was gone, leaving only Nicholas on the floor. Mr. Suarez lifted one thick eyebrow and pressed the other lower. He could only puzzle over what that meant until it became clear by the world going dark for him. Derek's mom had crawled over behind the couch, popping up from behind and slipping her fingers under Mr. Suarez's glasses. He was caught completely off guard. Ah! His father started from the shock of a surprise attack that wasn't committed by himself. Yeah, Mom! Derek hadn't gotten his controller back. Mr. Suarez was stubborn in his hold, but his dad was just as incapacitated as a driver. Yeah, Mom! An echo of Derek's cheer came from behind. The excitement in the air had stirred a fire in Nicholas. He wasn't just playing with an off-controller anymore. He crawled on all fours at a rapid pace until he reached the couch and launched himself right at his dad's stomach. It was powerful enough that Mr. Suarez sprang forward, and Miss Suarez's hands were yanked off him. Oof! But Derek's controller was finally freed. Mr. Suarez had to let go of both controllers to catch his squirming child. Nicholas would not be contained. climbed up over his dad's shoulders and wrapped his arms around Mr. Suarez's face in sweet justice. The Teen Suarez car flew off the bridge into the abyss below. Yeah, Nicholas! Harry placed down his own controller in his lap, with a shake of his head and a smirk. Teen Suarez wasn't winning this race. Derek rolled his shoulders and poked out a tongue out of the corner of his mouth in concentration. He was back in business. Team Wolf had course corrected and raced towards the finish line of the final lap. The youngest Suarez hugged all four of his limbs around his dad, even tighter. Seeing Derek speed his car around the track. Yeah! Iron's what needed now, but you were just as invested in watching your car make the last stretch. And Derek brought it home, crossing the finish line. We won! Derek threw his fist into the air and pumped them back down to his chest, and turned to you with a palm held out for you to smack. You hugged him. You ignored the hand and flung your arms around his neck. He squeezed you back, pressing his face into your shoulder. You're victorious. We won! Nicholas sent his arms up towards the sky, in perfect imitation of his eldest brother. Mr. Suarez used this opportunity to collect his son from his shoulders and place Nicholas on his lap. He felt his son's hair and he laughed, breathless but full of joy. Okay, I lost. Next race. This time Derek repeated the phrase, still raring to go. But that was naturally followed by the original copycat. Nicholas clapped gleefully and snuggled up against his seat on his father's chest. Next race! Jorge picked up his abandoned controller once more, his voice quieter but no less sincere. Yeah, next race! In all the commotion, you'd completely forgotten you could have switched to the driver role to take over for Derek at any time. Jorge could have, too, for his dad, but you glad it went the way it did. Team Wolf got its win with a sister on Team Power Drivers, Nicholas and Miss Suarez. And the game was just getting started. Next race. You couldn't help but joining the pattern. It got big smiles from the family. Well, now this is a real party. There's still pizza in the fridge. Who wants leftovers? The suggestion of food riled Nicholas up even more. He clambered over his dad's shoulders for a second time, tugging on his beard and accidentally knocking his glasses off. Mr. Suarez wheezed out a chuckle. Nicholas stared out from over the couch in the kitchen. He wanted the pizza, but couldn't be the first to ask. Oh. I do!
Same.
Me too. Jorge and Mr. Suarez chimed in their own request.
Sure.
Can I have some, Mom? I would like some pizza from my beloved wife who never turns against me. She snickered with a glint in her eyes. Of course, start the game. I'll heat it up. All four of the Suarez men spoke in unison. Thanks, Mom. Thank you, too.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. The players all resumed their positions and took up their tools, slightly sweaty GameCube controllers. When the second race started, the grin on Derek's face was one of the most radiant you had seen the whole day. His dad, mom, and brothers too really knew how to make Derek happy. That brought a smile to your face too. From getting a window into Derek's life from what you knew from your own, spending every day with the same people could take a lot of patience. But there were lots of perks too. The time of the Suarez household came to an end with household ended with family, food, and fun. There wasn't much more you could ask for. And we have done it with being responsible. Thank you for staying with this very long episode. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now!